Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, my name's Dr. Ian Phillips, and today we have some breaking news here with respects to the Secret Service missing 102 radio transmissions before Trump was shot. We all know that infamous day lives on in American history. Donald Trump, the former president at the time, was shot in the ear. Not a single person can look at this picture here. You can see the blood dripping down on his ear. Look at that. You see all the Secret Service members going to guard him and hug him and trying to just make sure that he is protected per their job after this lone gunman here. Crooks which is his name, Crooks, was again shooting that shot at him, grazed him. A couple more centimeters down, Trump would have been dead. Secret Service then shot Crooks. As soon as his shot was practically fired, Crooks was fired at and killed. And it was just a whole crazy day. Not a single person doesn't know that. But now I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a taste as to, what's a little bit more information that's coming out here, because it is not looking good. It is actually one of the most mishandled things I have ever seen on behalf of any government agency whose job is tasked with protecting a politician's life. And, this is not just we forgot to do X, Y, or Z. This was a very, very, very inexcusable offense that was done on behalf of the Secret Service here, in the sense that they did not take the proper protocols to protect a former president. Now, look, obviously everybody makes mistakes here, but in the same breath, what went on is not sounding good. So with that said, let's give you a little bit of background here. So a new Inspector General report has revealed something, again, it's just beyond it's incomprehensible here. It sounds less like a security failure and more like a deleted scene from some political flick. Right? On July 13th, 2024, Donald Trump walked on the stage at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Again, you can see him right there in this picture. Now, nearby law enforcement officers were already searching for a suspicious young man who'd been seen around a building overlooking the rally grounds. They photographed him. They saw him carrying a rangefinder. They lost track of him. They searched for him, and they eventually found him on a rooftop with a rifle. And during that unfolding search, local officers exchanged 102 radio transmissions concerning the man who would attempt to assassinate Trump. Again, 102. The United States Secret Service received none of them. Not because the radios were destroyed in a hurricane, not because foreign intelligence jammed the frequencies, not because officers were operating in a cave beneath the Himalayas. The Secret Service did not receive the transmissions because it failed to establish a joint communications room with local law enforcement. The agency entrusted with protecting presidents and presidential candidates apparently arrived at one of the most politically sensitive events in America without ensuring that everyone responsible for security could actually speak to one another. That's not a minor procedural defect. This is not something, that you're just forgetting to bring, the correct extension cord here, right? You literally did not have communications between local law enforcement and the federal law enforcement, right? And without it, you do not have coordinated protection. Right, you have several groups of armed people independently experiencing the same emergency, and that is essentially what happened. Local law enforcement was transmitting information about a suspicious man. Secret Service existed inside a separate communication structure, and Trump's protected detail was never warned about the suspicious individual. Trump was allowed to take the stage. Right, the suspicious individual reached a roof with a direct line of sight to the former president of the United States. And then he fired 8 rounds, one bullet striking Trump in the ear. 2 spectators, David Dutch and James Copenhaver, were seriously wounded, and Corey, a firefighter and father, was killed while shielding his family. Right? That is the human cost of the phrase communications failure. Government reports have magnificent ability to make a catastrophe sound like an office printer malfunction, and information was not adequately disseminated. Command structures were insufficiently integrated, and roles and responsibilities lacked clarity. Right? Again, a father died, 2 men were shot, a former president came within an inch of being murdered on live television. Right? And, the people protecting him did not hear 102 radio transmissions from the officers searching for the eventual gunman. Now, to be precise here, these were not necessarily 102 different officers, independently announcing there's an assassin on the roof. Some transmissions would have repeated information, coordinated the search, requested locations, or discussed what officers were seeing. But that qualification does not make the number reassuring. It makes the system even more indefensible. Right? This was not one gargled message. It was not a single warning lost in static. An entire stream of local law enforcement communication was occurring outside the Secret Service's awareness. Secret Service reportedly received only 5 phone calls and 3 text messages about Thomas Matthew Crooks. 5 calls, 3 texts, while local police radios were alive with traffic. And because information did not reach the correct people, Trump's immediate protective detail was not alerted. Again, think about what that means here. The protectee was on stage, the crowd was exposed, officers were searching for a suspicious person nearby a building with a direct line of sight, and the people physically responsible for moving Trump away from the danger did not possess the complete picture. At what point does somebody say, do not put him on stage until we find this person? Look, guys, I mean, obviously, there's always more to look into. Again, if it takes us 2 years to find this out here, that's kind of a problem. But, unless maybe I'm just late to the ball here. But, in this situation, you want to be thinking about if this happened, 102 radio transmissions did not reach the Secret Service. First of all, why did the Secret Service not have enough men there to essentially be made aware of the same content that would have been in those transmissions in the first place, right? So that's already a little bit concerning. But you could say, okay, well, they supplement through local law enforcement, and if that's the case, what's going on here? Malfunctions, I'm sure. Miscommunication, I'm sure. But if this is not handled appropriately, I don't think you can necessarily keep them on stage. This could be any of our politicians here. And this is something that, you want to, be thinking logically about here. Why are we not at the very least, securing the roofs? I don't know. It seems fair to me, considering the line of sight was pretty goddamn close. I think anybody who's reasonably trained with a rifle could probably hit that shot. Now, obviously, you always want to try to avoid, saying that something was done out of malice. If it was just done out of maybe ignorance, or potentially it was, not done out of compliance, but rather it was done out of, just being misprepared or, incompetent, I guess, with respects to the given situation. But it's still something that, like, in the future, we need to be, like, 100% crystal clear on, like, of a president, if we got this going on with local law enforcement, this needs to reach the Secret Service a lot faster here. Right? It can't be something whereby, this is like a last minute thing, and especially considering there was phone calls and the text messages, why exactly were those not taken as seriously as it probably should have been? Now, again, I don't know necessarily the time frame on this, and maybe this was all happening within, 30 seconds, the phone calls and text messages, and then, by that point, it's too late. Maybe this wasn't 5 or 10 minutes before. But the radio transmissions, that, if 102 of them, like, that sounds like that's would have taken some time. So, who knows? Maybe those were the first things, and then after that, they went to the call and text once they realized the radio transmissions weren't going through. Valid. But nonetheless, the horrible event happened that day. It's a day infamous in American history, and it's a day that I think as Americans we gotta learn from moving forward. And so, with that said, guys, hopefully you did enjoy the video here. I just thought that was some interesting little bit of news there. Again, 102 radio transmissions missed before Trump was shot. How crazy is that? But guys, if you did enjoy the video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe. And you can follow me on social media at Ian Phillips USA. My name is Dr. Ian Phillips, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.